And I just want to welcome everyone for joining us today with Tom Barker and Lee Rennick from Six Trends. And really excited that they've chosen Belleville as their new home and come to this region. I think it's quite exciting that you guys have access to a digital agency, global digital agency that has done work with a number of different organizations that you might be familiar with, from Pizza to the Royal Bank, the Raptors, and even the Maple Leafs. And we all know what kind of we all know what a dynamic marketing program the Maple Leafs are, considering the product that they deliver. Anyway, I have to say that just because there are always a couple of Maple Leaf fans and a couple of Maple Leaf haters in the group. Anyway, that being said, welcome everyone for joining us. I think what you're going to find with Tom and Lee is that they bring you that foundation of strategy that we often use tools for without always understanding the value or the impact they can have. I'm not going to say any more than that. I'm going to close my camera so you get them full screen. We are recording today's session. This will be followed by another session next week, for which we will automatically register you all for. And we do take questions. There is going to be followed with a Q&A. So if you have any questions as we're going through this, please put them in the chat area or the Q&A section. We'll capture those. And once we get down to that, if you need to raise a hand during the Q&A piece as well, feel free and we can bring your camera on screen. For now, you won't have your camera enabled. So if you're worried that something's not working, no, we are in control. It's not you. And we'll let it go. Perfect. Thanks so much, you guys, for joining us today.
Okay,
Thanks,
well,
Jill.
Thank you, Jill. That's a great intro, and welcome everybody on this beautiful snowy day, hopefully the last of the year. So the way we've structured this, these are two very short, quite discursive webinars that we're doing. We know a lot of people got fatigue from long Zoom, so we're going to keep it very tight and make sure there's a lot of time for us to have some conversation at the end of it with all of you. I'm leading this week's, and then my business partner and partner in life, Lee Rennick, will be leading next week's. So the format is I'm going to kick off with a brief set of slides, probably take about 10 minutes, and then we'll open it up to conversation. So I'm going to share my screen so that we can, oh, the host has disabled my screen sharing. So I think I'm going to ask Jill, maybe Lisa, you can switch on my screen sharing, please.
And so, you know, the two webinars that we're doing today are really around, or this week and next week are really around ensuring that there's a sort of big global helicopter view of the digital ecosystem, which I know a lot of you know about. And so this is just taking a bigger, broader look at it, with Tom leading this one. And next week, I'm super excited because it's all going to be about conversions. And, you know, 9.6 touch points you need to convert someone into becoming a donor, a sale, and then how to keep them there. So it'll be really exciting. I'm excited for that one. But yeah, I'm also excited for Tom's presentation.
Okay, so let's kick off. I'm just going to get rid of this.
If there's any issue with everyone should be able to see the first slide, Be Smart with Digital. If not, please let Jill or Lisa know.
Yeah. Okay, so Be Smart with Digital, that's the title. Now we're really looking at retail growth, but this does apply to growth for not-for-profits, for example, and if you're doing business to consumer outside of the retail operations, then there's a lot of applicable content here. And the big question we've got is, how can digital be applied across every aspect of your business to dramatically grow sales and overall performance? And I say dramatically because we are in a situation at the moment where sales have slumped typically for a lot of businesses. Others have benefited during the COVID period, but the research and the findings are showing that what's happening during COVID is basically a pattern, a trend that was, generally speaking, going to happen anyway. It's just accelerated. So everything that's relevant to boost business during COVID will continue, generally speaking, to be relevant going beyond. Just Jill's already introduced us, so already said Six Trends digital agency. founded in 2016. I've got a long background in design and digital on big projects like the London Eye Ferris wheel in the UK, worked on the first Bluetooth headset, and I launched a digital futures program at OCAD University, an undergraduate and graduate program, back in 2012. Lee is well known for running campaigns, multi-billion-dollar campaigns for well-known brands. And she's also done a lot of fundraising and development, including for the Royal Agricultural Show. So we kind of brought together sort of digital and design tech know-how with the marketing, fundraising and sales expertise and campaign expertise to create our agency. So it's been a good fit. And this diagram here is very small, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit. This is what many of you will be familiar with, if not all of you, sales and marketing pipeline. And Lee calls it a fish diagram because at the back, on the left-hand side, you've got the tail, which is basically how does somebody get to know about your organization or your business or your not-for-profit? And at the other end, how do you achieve a sale or a donation? And for almost every business that is business to consumer, that is the key question. And we talk about the milestones on that as users registering, and we're talking in the digital domain. That's touch point number one. Touch point number two is that an opportunity to make a purchase is presented to the potential customer. And then obviously, number three, there is actually a sale made or a donation is given. Now, going from 1 to 2 to 3, that process has been around for, well, basically since the invention of commerce. We're going back a long, long time, hundreds of thousands of years. The ways in which people get to know the organization have obviously come with the arrival of the internet in the 90s, social media, in particular, influencers more recently, advertorials, and so on and so forth. Now, a couple of things to note about this. One is in the digital domain, giving somebody an opportunity without them registering is not the best route because there's a huge amount of value in having registrations, getting their emails and some information about the potential customer. And also going straight to a sale, although that's exciting because we all want to get sales, that's also not a good route because we're not getting the registrations. And a kind of more detailed explanation about that is point 4. Once you've made a sale, that's just the beginning of the journey with more sales. So number 4, going back to that customer for remarketing, subscriptions, multi-year, customer satisfaction, new products, after-sales support, bringing your customers on board as influencers. They are potentially an army of evangelists who can tell everybody else that your products and services are great. Staying in touch, news, etc., etc. So with this little fish diagram, I think more so in digital than in traditional formats, that opportunity for remarketing and reselling to existing customers and leveraging that registered list of people is absolutely critical. And I've worked with a number of corporates who have provided incredible freebies to users without asking for registration ever. So, that's something to really be aware of. So how do you actually take advantage of digital in order to make all of that work? Well, this is a nice, fairly simple diagram. And at the heart of it is this kind of solar system of the sun with various planets. A website is a no-brainer. Email marketing is a no-brainer. Social media is a no-brainer. And then some businesses place ads, paid ads. Others have customer relationship management software to track their users and their sales. Then obviously there's, the non-digital component, which is important as well, which I have up here. Print, radio, promos, et cetera, you'll be familiar with all of those. Now, the bad news is that what I've just shown you was good 10 years ago. And it was a nice, simple model. And before we had more websites than there are human beings on the planet, can you believe it? And social media was not something that everybody was signed up to. Then you could make an impact pretty quickly with getting just a few of these things in place.
Yeah.
Now,
so can I just interrupt there? So when you talk about the Raptors or the Maple Leafs, you know, 10 years ago, the promotion would be to heavily invest in radio and in print, making sure that, you know, there was a lot of radio, print, potentially partnerships. So, you know, the Raptors partnering with Pizza and leveraging their media. That's completely, you know, it's still there, but it's really pivoted quite a bit to the digital format.
Yeah, and I think the theme today is very much about, thank you, Lee. The theme today is very much about being super focused, because if you're not, being generally out there just doesn't cut it anymore. So that diagram today has turned into this thing. And before you throw up your arms in disbelief, don't panic, because what you're looking at here is the entire digital ecosystem. And we wouldn't expect many businesses to be leveraging all of them. But if we just zoom into the planet for a minute, you can see that some of these are now inked in as being kind of essential. So email marketing is there. The customer relationship is now inked in because you basically need it. Events, which is also now increasingly necessary. The website, obviously. The ads and the social media have got this little umbilical connection, and I'll explain a little bit about that in a minute. What's branching off from all of this is a whole load of sub-elements which are critical. So social media now, the big four, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, a lot of businesses have not typically thought of YouTube and LinkedIn. But they are critical. LinkedIn for high value, high end, particularly anything that's B2B, but also it's now a very well established social media channel in its own right. YouTube has the second most searches after Google. So can be difficult for people to put together video content, but it has fantastic hit rate. If we look at the ads section here is very heavily focused around Google. In this instance, 3 types: display ads, search ads, and video ads. All of them have a great deal of value. The search ads are very simple because they're text only. So even if you don't have access to graphics, then you can place search ads and they are phenomenally successful for click-throughs. Of course, the ad systems are also available through all of the social media channels. What I will say is that Google still has the lead in terms of focus, like the information on who you want to hit. The website we look at here, most people use a content management system. Everything mentioned here is free, so WordPress is a freebie. From that, you can launch web app campaigns, which direct people to subpages, or you can build your own web apps specifically. Analytics, important to be able to use analytics to tell you what people are doing on your website. You'll have heard of Google Analytics, but there's something called Google Tag Manager, which is also important for tracking how people go through your website. And also your server or host has quite a lot of tracking information. The important purpose of the website really is to actually get people to register or make a purchase. And that's where the customer relationship management comes in. We recommend HubSpot as the basic tool. If you get the free version of HubSpot, it has almost everything you need. Likewise for email marketing, MailChimp's a freebie. Gives you most of the features that you need, and you can integrate HubSpot, MailChimp. The other one that's really important, which has been a bit of a sleeper until recently, is Eventbrite for events. Typically now 25 to 30% of signups with Eventbrite actually come from people who just go onto Eventbrite to look for events. So you're getting free sales and marketing for now. They're not charging. And you can also link Eventbrite directly to, for example, an event that you launch in Facebook. So those are really handy tools that are freebies.
And can I just make one comment about Eventbrite too? For the nonprofits or the charities that are on the video today, on the webinar, obviously Eventbrite also allows that opportunity to ask for a donation right then and there. So that's quite interesting as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, if that diagram is driving you crazy, don't worry, you can study it in more detail, because I think Chamber of Commerce will be circulating a PDF of it. But the important thing there is you don't try and do it all at once. You choose the bits that are going to give you the best results fast. Choices, for example, are often not all that obvious. And here's just one example when you're trying to decide whether you want to pay for an ad or an unpaid, or just do unpaid postings. A Google ad generates $2 in sales for every dollar spent. So, for example, $50 might buy 4,000 impressions. Actually, you probably get more with $50. Say that gives you 100 click-throughs to your web page and 5 sales totaling $100. That gives you the average return. Unpaid postings are free, goes to your followers and hashtags, but you've got to keep posting because obviously anything there is fleeting. And unfortunately, hashtags are now totally oversaturated. So if you use any well-known hashtags, the chances are that most people will never get to see your posting. There's just too many. So most people would say the choice there is time versus money. It isn't. It's actually about getting the most focused targeting possible. It's much better to have 100 people eyeball what you're offering if those are people that are really interested in what you've got to sell than 10,000 who really probably will never click through and make a purchase. So now it's all about focus, focus, focus. And I think the next slide kind of says the same, which is I've just put up the standard channels, which are super saturated now. Don't forget the others. Reddit, Airbnb experiences, Etsy, even Twitch. If you've got teenage kids, you've probably seen them with a headset on doing something with Twitch. TikTok is not just about dancing; it's also about ads.
It's pretty big too.
Yeah. Again, it depends on the demographic,
Yeah.
Kijiji, etc. There's a lot of specialty apps, many of which are local. Get in the loop. I think they might be with us today.
I get in the loop.
Hi, if you're there. Harvest Hastings for farm produce, etc., etc. These already give you a very focused set of people. So Twitch, if you're looking for teenage kids who are into games, you can't go wrong with Twitch. Reddit, you can find the subgroups that are super specialized and you can advertise directly to them.
May I add one thing? So we're really big about, next week we'll talk a lot about partnerships, but obviously an opportunity, for instance, to partner with Harvest Hastings, you know, if you have visitors or guests coming into your store, hopefully from out of town soon, then there's the opportunity to drive them to an area, a farm where they can pick up nice, fresh, local produce. So don't forget about that opportunity as well. It's in the overall diagram. Partnerships are really important to promote your business.
Yeah, totally.
Or your charity.
So we now have a little advertising break since we're part of the digital universe. McGraw Hill, the publishers of my book, they told me last week that they would give 25% off to anybody on this webinar who wanted to get a copy. If that's the case, let the Belleville Chamber of Commerce know and we'll get McGraw Hill to send some copies through. Now, there's a health warning on this book. There's a lot of pages. It's like over 650 pages. It comes with hundreds of online web examples and it's quite technical. So it's not going to suit everybody, but if you are trying, for example, to purchase or procure services from an agency like ourselves or another web company, then this is a good, it's got some good sections that will give you an intro to what you should be looking at when you're procuring services and how to get best value.
I think we're close to almost being done. We've got a few minutes left. I know we've tried to stay to 30 minutes, but we're really hoping you can join next week to talk about now building an overall strategy, a marketing plan, and then really activating those potential clients and getting the sales and conversions.
Yeah, I think that's it. So we can ask Jill and Lisa, perhaps you can moderate if anyone's got any questions. This is a good time.
Well, thanks so much, you guys. And I think what we, that's a really high level look at, and I know there's a lot of moving parts. And I think what we're trying to emphasize here when you're talking about creating a marketing strategy or promotional strategy, what you are looking at is that there's so many different components. You don't need to use all of them, but understanding kind of where, the targeted marketing has always been my passion. And finding who your customer is and where they live is how you begin to build and develop that relationship. And I love what you're going to talk about next week, not to give too much away, but how everybody on this call this week could also be a part of helping you find the people where they are. So I think we've got somebody who has a question.
Kevin, I'm going to allow Kevin Clark to talk. So Kevin, if you want to unmute yourself, go ahead.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi. So we've been trying to determine the best course of action for, a marketing campaign. And what I really want to know is what are the sort of two, and we're primarily business to business in the IT landscape. So we manage business networks. And what we're trying to figure out is what is the primary focus we should be looking at in terms of social media. I don't want to call it the low hanging fruit, but the free to act on stuff so that we can start generating an audience and a return, and we can start showing that investment is paying off. And then the second part of that is how do you do accountability properly? How do I track effectiveness and return through some of those channels? They seem to be so nebulous.
Yeah.
So I can answer just a little bit on knowing your business structure and what you're looking at. You probably want to look at, I would say you're probably looking at reaching out to business professionals, decision makers, correct? Is that?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so I would be looking then at those channels and specifically LinkedIn. I've done a lot of LinkedIn ad campaigns and managing for clients. I don't know if you're on LinkedIn, so if you're not, then that poses a different challenge, but I would look at that. From the standpoint of reporting, LinkedIn is great when you do paid ads. You can really be targeted with them, just like with Facebook or others, but definitely you'd want to be looking at them. Potentially from Facebook side of things, you'd want to be looking at various groups that are business related groups. And then I think, also networking within this community with the Belleville Chamber of Commerce. But LinkedIn is a great one. And I don't know if you've used it. We had a potential client who, unfortunately went with another agency, but when I looked at their data and what they were doing, and this is what they were business to business, they were worried about Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And when I looked at their LinkedIn account, they had much more activity on that page than they did on any of the others. And I said, that's the place where people are going to want to potentially connect and buy. So I'd seriously consider that.
Yeah. And you also, with LinkedIn, you can write some short articles with some advice. 500 words is good. Put them on Medium as well. That's a pretty good free site. It shows up in the search engines. And finally, do some YouTube, like 30 seconds YouTube. Do some paid promos on them.
Yeah.
Okay. So, leveraging the paid versions of those programs, you think is the best way to generate the initial return?
If you spend $25 promoting your 30-second YouTube video that lets people know something useful about what you can do, you'll get 1,000 views. That means that you get pushed right to the top of the searches. It could take you forever to get 1,000 views just by creating good content. So yeah, $25 well spent.
And on LinkedIn, I would just start, if you don't have the budget to do anything with it, start building those smaller promotions, the videos, and start just building up there and connecting with people.
Yeah,
if you can.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
And I've got Peter Coy here, and Peter, I'm just going to allow you if you want to unmute. Go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. Nice to hear another British voice join the Belleville Brits. Very interesting presentation. I have about 2 minutes actually before I have to get onto another Zoom meeting. That's life these days. Just wanted to say, fascinated by your process. We do an awful lot of work with people relating to their sales process and getting into the marketing and automation side of things. And would very much like to get a quick meeting with you. Perhaps we can chat about that. But I was just wondering if you had come across Zoho in your work. Have you got
No,
any
I don't
experience
think
with
so,
it? Oh, okay.
No.
Well,
So
we can certainly tell you about the 60 million people who use Zoho.
that would be great. It's a vast universe out there. So
Zolo?
the more we know about. Oh, Zolo.
Zoho.
Yeah,
not
Zoho.
Zolo. What the hell's Zolo? God.
No.
No.
Zoho is
Zolo.
that's the integrated suite. Is that the one?
Zoho is the integrated suite. Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry, I do. Yeah. I thought was it bought by a venture capital
No.
business?
No, I can say no because they've never sold.
Okay, that's good.
They're
Yeah.
fully,
So apologies.
fully independently funded. There's no investor group telling them
Yeah.
what to do.
So we one of our colleagues back in the Toronto office was a huge advocate.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, all right. Well, look, I've sent you an email, so hopefully we can connect. Thank you very much for your presentation. I have to get to my other meeting now. Since I'm
Okay,
running
thanks.
it, I better start it. But anyway, nice to meet you. Thank you for the
Take care.
presentation. Bye for now. I've downloaded your PDF.
Great.
So for anybody who's here now, I think we'll post the PDF. So if you really want to dig into some of those graphics that you saw that Tom went through, again, starting to understand who you are. And I think with earlier we did some sessions with Jamie Hosking, who was the e-commerce advisor. Might even want to go back and look at some of those because we talk a little bit more about how to develop your target market, how to understand who they are, what the concept is of developing kind of your online presence. So if you feel like you've jumped in a little too late and still want to get a little bit of background on a bit of that, those might be helpful too. But I think what you'll find next week with Lee and Tom again is that we'll really spend some time talking about that integration and that developing the relationship. And again, it's really hard when you are trying to create word of mouth virtually. And we've been forced into that space so much faster. And those who have adapted well have reaped the benefits of that reward. Though, of course, there's still some of those services and products that you can only deliver in person. So how do we kind of build the excitement about when we can get back into place as well? So a couple of different ways to approach that. Any other thoughts, you guys?
Oh, I think that's a great summary. I mean, to me, what we want to see, this to me is also about efficiency. We want to see people, we're small businesses ourselves. We know it's a 24/7 role, but
Yeah.
it's all about getting the most done with less effort. So efficiency is really critical.
And
you shouldn't be posting at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Well, and learning from each other, that idea of partnership and understanding what success means for someone else and how you can springboard off of that and leverage that. So that's really important as well.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. And with the idea always being that whatever you do online or whatever you do to connect is all geared towards making a sale, because
exactly.
That
getting a donation or getting a donation.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's getting people to buy into the product or service or whatever it is that you have to offer. It's the final connection. It's closing it, right? It's closing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember one of my old bosses many years ago, he always said to me, when we often do projects that lose money and we call them strategic, but actually they really just lose money. And I think we have there's this new word that's come about in the last 10 years when we talk about building presence online. And it to me, I think it's similar to those comments, which is that presence, yeah, it's fine, but it's not necessarily building sales. You can't quantify it or qualify it. So again, we hate it when we work with people who are working like 24/7 building presence but not sales. So it's important to really focus your attention on the things that can matter and to know what those are.
Yeah, what's that old adage? I know half of my marketing dollars are working, I just don't know which half.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And now's a good time because we'll be rolling out of COVID now over the coming months. So everybody who's had time to play around with some of these formats and tools will be in much better shape going forward.
Yeah, and for me, it's not just, but it's about getting that first sale, but then it's about retention, right? So whether it's a donor or a sale, and how do you, it's about donor or customer segmentation, right? So understanding, you know, who the customers are that are coming back loyally, really engaging with them. You know, I think I mentioned to you, Jill, there's one store in Belleville that I go to every Sunday, and I spend anywhere from $80 to $125. I've never heard from them. And so it'd be really nice if one day they said, why don't you come in and, or why don't next, when COVID's finished, come in and do X, Y, Z. So really getting that ecosystem and understanding who those people are that really love what you do.
Absolutely.
It's very good. Okay, thanks all. We're 11:04, so I think we're 30 minutes on the nose. So that's fantastic. Enjoy the rest of your snowy day, everyone, and we will talk to you all soon. See you next week.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.